Hello neonates, JB Illusion here with a little video about Paradox Interactive and Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. It's finally happening, and there's a lot of information to talk about. Quite a bit of this is going to be speculation. The devs were relatively tight-lipped about quite a few things, but there are some things that we do as of now know. First, we are one of several victims of a mass embrace. Chaos follows, and the factions at play are at odds with one another. Also, we are going to be playing a thin blood. Those of us who played the first Bloodlines game most likely remember Lily and her Aussie boyfriend E. Not to mention Rosa, the woman who had some fairly prophetic words for you. They're essentially cast-offs. No one wants them because of the unique conditions of their existence, namely their generational disadvantages. You see, when we refer to generation of a vampire, we're talking about how far removed they are from the original Cain, who is the first generation vampire. For example, Oracle, or Ishtar, the founder of the Toreador clan, is 3rd generation. Beckett, the Gangrel Nas scholar, is of the 7th generation, and our characters are somewhere behind him in the original Bloodlines. When you start getting further down the lineage of Cain, the blood becomes weaker. Beckett's power pales in comparison to the antediluvian of the Toreador clan and so on, but there's still vampiric strength within each generation. Until you get to Thin Bloods, at least, these kindred are weak compared to others of their kind. Now, Thin Bloods are not exactly loved by all because of this and a few other reasons. In the first Bloodlines, they had no one to usher them into the world of darkness like LaCroix and Jack did for us, which resulted in quite a rough time for them. Shunned by kindred society, but still held to the masquerade, some Thin Bloods ran afoul of the grand game, only to be snuffed out by those who discovered their violations. Like a certain kindred who sold a story about vampires to an intrepid writer. In V5, the hatred for Thin Bloods has dissipated somewhat, but we still won't have a clan to call our own. However, we're still a supernatural creature, and that means you won't be entirely defenseless in the world of darkness. Thin Bloods don't really have disciplines like other kindred in V5, but they can make use of something called Thin Blood Alchemy, which uses something called Blood Resonance to give you counterfeit discipline powers. How does it work exactly? Well, my friend down at the pier, Rosa, gave me some advice. You need some of your blood, some mortal blood of the appropriate resonance, and some other odds and ends to create whatever desired effect you are looking for. The different resonance types according to V5 are animal, caloric, melancholy, phlegmatic, and sanguine, which is based on humorism. Humorism is a medieval medical system. In the original version, there are only 4: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, which according to the system were all found in the human body and could have adverse effects on it if one was predominant within the body. Vampiric resonance is set by a mortal's emotions. Additionally, the strengths of the resonances can differ in the tabletop game. There is well-balanced, fleeting, intense, and acute levels of resonance, which all give separate bonuses. Now, once we get all of the ingredients, how do we mix them? There's 3 ways: in our body, in a mortal's, or in a cauldron, to be bottled and drunk later. Yeah, if blood alchemy does make it into the game, it will be interesting. One of the first alchemy abilities Thin Bloods can learn just so happens to be Far Reach, also known as Lesser Telekinesis. Remind you of anything? Whether this will be a XP system like some have speculated, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that it'll be a more direct buff. So this is pure speculation on my part, but blood will be integral to our survival, not just as a means of feeding the beast, but actual combat. If we don't have enough of X blood, we might not be able to use certain abilities. I can see a situation where we need telekinesis to grab a weapon in a situation where we were woefully outgunned, only to not have said materials. You're going to have to make sure to stock up, or at least have a constant supply of certain blood that fits your playstyle. The creators mentioned that resonance would play a role in certain buffs we could get, possibly to our abilities. Also, during their Twitch stream, there were some indicators of the feelings or the room in which the announcement was made, as well as Twitch chat. Apathy, fear, hunger, and despair showed up during the stream. Maybe there's another one that I might have missed. Tell me in the comments. Now that I think about it, those 4 feelings had corresponding colors. Fear corresponds to yellow, apathy was black, hunger was red, and despair was blue. almost like it matches up with the medieval humorism and the colors attributed to each humor. Which leads to another aspect altogether. We all might remember feeding on random clubgoers if our seduction or presence was high enough. Maybe with a high seduction we can put them into a specific emotional state. At first, it may be a fleeting feeling that offers you an okay buff, but what if there was something you could do in-game to drive this NPC to have more intense feelings? Maybe a story mission where the events of their life are in your hands. There could be multiple key NPC characters that you could manipulate. Perhaps our character gains a bonus from hunger, and you need to spur that emotion in another, which is then followed by us feeding on the hunger that we instilled in them. Maybe our obfuscate gains a buff from despair, and we run into an NPC that has a bit of a despair, but it's otherwise well balanced within them. Then they go from having everything go their way to utter soul-crushing despair. Thanks to a certain kindred, of course, a shadowy figure approaches them to offer support, only for them to become dependent on this figure, and eventually they become their ghoul. Now, it could be that we have just a basic buff system that gives us a bonus for feeding on blood with a particular resonance, but there is also another possibility. Humorism was all about keeping a patient's body balanced. If they have a lacking in, let's say, black bile, you would put a patient on a specific diet to fix that. They took the stance of you are what you eat. Yeah, it's all about balance, and as a vampire, we are what we eat. Kindred may get bonuses based off of a particular resonance. Perhaps we could throw our own balance out of whack with what we consume in order to strengthen our disciplines. Perhaps we love potency, and that corresponds to a particular emotion. But as we feed more and more on that resonance, we inevitably become weaker in other areas. Now that we may have a fighting chance against the world, let's talk about a few things that have been put out. For one, there is an emphasis on the old guard versus the new blood. The founders of the vampiric culture in Seattle versus the tech-savvy kindred moving into the area. Or so the game store page says. Also, we will get to be part of a clan. Is that going to be through diablerie? Not sure. Diablerie involves consuming another vampire to lower your generation. Remember, a lower generation equals more power. I have a strong feeling that we're going to be feeding on another vampire. Some commenters to our trailer video and I have speculated on these events, and in my mind it plays out kinda like this. The mass embrace leads to truces being broken and bad blood. There's an interesting picture that the developers have released, and it caught my eye. It looks like a gangrel went feral in a diner? Is this where everything went down? More importantly, who embraced these children? Perhaps one or more kindred who are either on the outs with their clan or become that way after the events that led to your embrace. Maybe, while the prince was deciding what to do with you, they were attacked, which led to a few of these thin bloods escaping. With blood alchemy as your only tool, how long can you really last? Really? Maybe a friend like the character we met in the trailer tells you about diablerie. How you can become a true vampire if you consume another. Don't go after one of the faction members, go after the ones who are already being hunted. Most likely, a blood hunt will be called on someone, so essentially every kindred within driving distance will be after the particular transgressors. Tracking down and taking on some of those who were behind your transformation would be an interesting play experience. Maybe you get some knowledge on where a specific kindred is hiding, through contacts, clan members, other kindred hunting them down, or just good old-fashioned detective work. You decide to go after, let's say, the Malkavian. They seem easy enough, and perhaps you have a little knowledge about their big weakness and it doesn't really bother you. You want their key disciplines. Tracking the Malkavian's twisted tracks to an abandoned insane asylum, you discover just how insane they truly are. A man or woman similar to Dr. Alistair Grout has taken to giving his own treatments to the new patients he kidnapped off the streets. Perhaps a family member told you what happened, and part of your mission is to save their loved one, or at least, you know, what's left of them. As you make your way through the doctor's patients, possibly helping them or feeding on them, in the process you finally meet the good doctor, and have your first boss battle, and discover how dementation, the Malkavian's key discipline, works. By experiencing it firsthand, after the good doctor's defeat, you choose to consume him, or her. Now you are a Malkavian, hearing the mad ramblings of a once respected doctor, and gain imitation, the Malkavian's key discipline, among others. Same could be said for hunting down a gangrel who's gone feral. You learn a bit about their disciplines and weaknesses through getting beat up a little bit. Then there is DLC. The Season of the Wolf, yeah, Seattle is in werewolf country. It is contested territory. You won't just have to be dealing with other kindred, but werewolves, and their enemies as well. There are a lot of things that you could face. The Kuei Jin of Bloodlines fame are one group. There are also some of the darker relatives of the werewolves, the Black Spiral Dancers for instance. They are a group of werewolves who have given themselves over to the worship of something that only desires chaos. Hopping on to the large company story thread, we may run into Pentex. A company that has not only werewolves and kindred, but other creatures that are on their payroll. Millions of dollars in otherworldly might solely focused on chaos. Considering Malcolm Chandler and Tender, one must wonder what other companies he was involved with. What do you think about starting off as a Thin Blood? How do you think we will join a clan? What other denizens of the World of Darkness would you like to see? As well as what clans would you like to play as? Tell me in the comments down below, and we'll all chat about it. Thank you all for watching, and good evening, Neonates.